Hello, good morning. Please enjoy this news. I have an update for you.
On December 14th, the 538 members of the U.S. Electoral College went to their state capitals to cast the votes that decide who will be the next American president. With a few key exceptions, most of the electors voted in line with the apparent results of their state's popular votes. Despite many allegations that the elections were compromised by fraud and irregularities, more than 300 electors voted for Democratic candidate Joe Biden. This seemingly handed him the presidency. With all the events happening in the last few weeks, things don't look so good for President Donald Trump. Judges around the country aren't taking his lawsuits, and the Supreme Court rejected a proposed injunction that would help investigators determine whether Pennsylvania's voting laws violated the U.S. Constitution. Many Republican politicians are coming out against the president and ignoring the thousands of witnesses who signed sworn affidavits saying that they saw fraud. And now that the Electoral College has voted, it seems like there isn't any chance Trump could get a second term. Because the courts aren't cooperating, Trump's legal challenges won't be able to change the results of the election in time. But Trump isn't conceding, and there are still a few things he can do to stay president. First is the Electoral College itself. The electors in each state are its U.S. senators and congressmen. Normally, they are supposed to vote for the candidate that won the popular vote in their state. But in the swing states, where there are many cases of suspected fraud, the Republican electors cast conditional votes for Trump, even though Biden supposedly won the presidential race there. This happened in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. In Michigan, the Republican Party electors sent a separate slate of votes to Congress. The Republican electors believe their actions are necessary to protect the rights of legal voters in their states. If there was widespread fraud in the election, and it is not investigated in time to change the outcome, then U.S. democracy could be damaged beyond repair. Americans would then lose their liberty and human rights. The Electoral College is supposed to meet on January 6, 2021, to count the electoral votes and decide the winner of the presidential election. There is no guarantee the Republican conditional votes will turn the election in Trump's favor. However, they will likely delay the Electoral College's voting process and trigger a round of debates and revotes. This would push the Electoral College's final decision to after January 6th, giving the Trump campaign more time to prove fraud and take actions to correct it. Additionally, the electoral disputes caused by the Republican electors could lead to the courts determining that the election results of certain states should be decertified. In that case, the election will be decided by a vote in the state legislative assemblies. Currently, the assemblies in the critical states are held by the Republicans. However, the courts will still have to veto the election results in order for the conditional votes to take effect. Whether they will cooperate remains to be seen. Major suspects of voter fraud in the 2020 election are anti-U.S. dictatorships like Communist China, Venezuela, and Iran. The Trump administration has punished these regimes severely, so they have a strong motivation to see him out of office. Attorneys Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood have linked Dominion voting systems, which made the voting machines and software used in 28 U.S. states, to the Chinese Communist Party and Venezuela. An audit of Dominion carried out on December 14th showed many vulnerabilities in the company. In September 2018, the Trump administration issued Executive Order 13848, titled Imposing Certain Sanctions in the Event of Foreign Interference in a United States Election. The order states that foreign powers have historically sought to exploit America's free and open political system. In recent years, the proliferation of digital devices and internet-based communications has created significant vulnerabilities and magnified the scope and intensity of the threat of foreign interference, as illustrated in the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment. The order declares a national emergency to deal with this threat. The Director of National Intelligence is given 45 days after an election to determine whether there was foreign interference in the election. If there was, the President can sanction the foreign powers responsible for the interference. The order also has ramifications for U.S. citizens and organizations that aided in the interference. According to a recent filing, it was revealed that Dominion Voting Systems was bought by a Swiss financial company linked to the Chinese Communist Party a month before the election. The company, UBS, paid $400 million for Dominion. The 45-day limit means that the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, has until December 18th to issue the report needed for Trump to invoke Executive Order 13848. If congressional and legal methods fail, and the Trump administration's investigations do not determine foreign interference in time for the 45-day limit, there is still one more option. According to the U.S. Constitution, the President has the right to take control of the National Guard and keep order in the event of rebellion or foreign subversion. This is the 14th Amendment, or the Insurrection Act. Experts have long warned of ties between the U.S. left wing and the Chinese Communist Party. This includes big tech, the mainstream media, and even elected politicians. For instance, in October, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was implicated in corrupt business deals with a Chinese state-run company. Many other compromising details were found on his laptop, which was discovered by the FBI in 2019. It was recently revealed that former Attorney General William Barr covered up information about the case for many months. Social media companies censored the story as fake news, claiming it was Russian interference. Even though the scandal was quickly verified, the mainstream media ignored it. At the geopolitical level, the Trump administration has been very tough on Communist China, calling it an illegitimate regime that goes against both democratic values and the wishes of the Chinese people. America has imposed sanctions on Chinese human rights abusers and restricted the activities of the CCP's companies abroad. The FBI has also arrested or deported a large number of Chinese spies. Joe Biden's campaign, however, has declared the need to compete with China without political confrontation. Biden's advisors call it competition without confrontation. Many of the former vice president's cabinet picks have histories of advocating the exact policies that led to Communist China's growth at the expense of American interest. If the U.S. left wing indeed mounted a coup against President Trump, he would have enough justification to invoke the Insurrection Act, investigate the many allegations of fraud, and correct the results of the election in line with the principles set out by the Founding Fathers and the U.S. Constitution.